Another specialized Google chart, which can be used to convey a value related to specific days, which can be displayed on a calendar, is the calendar chart. As an example, consider this data set we'll be working with for the demo. The link which you see in front of you is the original source of this data set, but it's also part of the course materials. The data set contains the daily temperatures of a number of different cities around the world, but we have now specifically extracted the data for the city of Regina in Canada. The columns which are of interest to us are the last two ones, the average temperature on a given day and the date on which that average temperature was recorded. So there is exactly one entry for each day in 2017. Significantly, you will observe that the average temperature values contain both negative and positive numbers, and we go all the way down to 365 rows of data. The goal when using a calendar chart is for a user to just get a glimpse of the chart and figure out what days have been cold and what days have been warm. And in addition to that, the user will also be able to zoom in on specific days in the chart itself to get precise details. While our calendar chart will represent data for individual days, it is also possible to configure the chart so that data for a month or even a year is presented. With that said, let's head over now to our source code. The calendar chart is available inside the calendar package, so we need to include that in our source. And then the callback function after the packages have been loaded is called draw calendar chart. Within that function, we set up a query object. So we link it to our dataset, which I have in Google Drive, and then we select just columns H and G. Column H is where the date is, and this needs to be the first column. And then the second column is the value which needs to be presented for that date, which in our case is the average temperature. And then we invoke the send method in order to retrieve the data. And then this will of course return a query response. And then inside our response handler, we account for any errors. And then following that, we transform the contents in the response to a data table. In the next step, we instantiate a calendar chart. So this is available at google.visualization.calendar. And then we start off by invoking a basic draw function and will not pass along any options just yet. And then let's just go over to the HTML section where we have a div element called calendar_basic. And this is where our calendar chart will be rendered. In this case, we have 365 days to represent, which is why I have set the width of the chart rather high. Alright, with that done, let's save things down and then load this HTML file in a browser. And this is what the calendar chart looks like. So we have 365 little squares, each of these representing a day. You can also see that there is a division by month. And beyond that, we have exactly 7 rows in this chart for each day of the week. And importantly, just by looking at the chart, we can clearly tell which days have been warm and which days have been cold. And towards the top right, the color scale which is in use is on display. And I guess the default coloring is a little counterintuitive for temperatures, since the coolest temperatures will be represented in red and the warmest ones in blue. As you might expect in Canada, the coldest days are in the months of December, January, and February, while the warmest ones are in the month of July. Also, the color scale ranges from -80 to +80, since these are temperatures in Fahrenheit and not Celsius. Alright, so we have a high-level view of how the temperatures fluctuate throughout the year. But if you want to get more details, well, we can simply hover over the individual points on this chart. So these are all the cooler days in the year. But heading over to July, well, we come across warmer temperatures. For example, on the 7th of July 2017, the temperature recorded was 70.5 Fahrenheit, which is about 21 degrees Celsius. And then, of course, at the other end of the spectrum, we have December, and on Christmas Day in 2017, the city of Regina recorded a temperature of -15 degrees. So this is the calendar chart rendered with the default options. But of course, we can override those and then customize the appearance of the chart. For that, let's head over to the source and first create an options object. We will start off with a title definition, and then we'll make sure that the options will be used when we invoke chart.draw. Alright, let's quickly confirm that this change will take effect. And now with the chart title in place, let's go on and add a few other options. First, if there is no data available for a particular day, we can define the appearance for that particular scenario. This is not quite applicable for our dataset, but it is possible to configure details such as the background color as well as the color itself. Another property which can be configured is the outline for each of the cells in the calendar, and this can be configured as calendar.cellcolor.stroke. So we set this to a value of green. So let's save and then head over to our calendar and refresh. And now we have each of the cells for the days outlined in green. So this was a quick introduction to the calendar chart, and it can be used to convey values which could even be negative numbers for any time period which can be conveyed in a calendar, such as day, month, or year.